Can I just tell y'all that today you are in for a treat on Southern Keto. We're gonna get into Keto and Carnivore Philly Cheesesteaks. I wanna show you my keto version, and then I wanna introduce a real special guest to show you the carnivore version of a Philly cheesesteak. This is the wizard of the carnivore kitchen. Y'all say hey to my buddy Chris from Chris Cookin' Nashville and his wife Ash. Y'all say hey to everybody.
What's going on, everybody? Chris Cookin' Nashville. We are happy to be here on Southern Keto's channel. Mr. Victor, thank you so much for having us, man.
If y'all watched the last video we did, you know that I don't ever miss one of Chris's recipes. I just can't tell you how awesome it is to have you on my channel to do these Philly cheesesteaks, one of my favorite sandwiches of all time. So we're just gonna pretend the Philly cheesesteak is Southern. I mean, Southern Philly, right? That's the thing. Anyway, doesn't matter, wherever you're at, you're gonna absolutely love it. So the bread I'm gonna make mine with is kind of like a fathead dough, if you've ever had that. Holds up really well to the cheesesteak and everything. And I think Chris has created the ultimate carnivore Philly cheesesteak roll for his. I can't wait to try it. So I'll show you my keto version of the Philly cheesesteak, and then Chris is gonna show you the carnivore version. We'll get into both of them right after this. Now I'm going to put all Chris's information down below as well. If you're not subscribed to him, make sure you subscribe because he's got some killer recipes. I've used a lot of them in my videos, and he's shown me a lot of ways to make dishes that I never thought would be possible on keto or carnivore. So let's get right into it. Let me show you what you need to put together my keto version of the Philly cheesesteak. So first of all, we'll put together these rolls for the Philly cheesesteaks. You're going to need a block of mozzarella cheese. Make sure you get the low moisture part skim. Don't get the fresh kind. You're going to need a block of cream cheese, and you're going to need some almond flour. You're going to need some baking powder, and make sure that you find the kind that does not have aluminum in it because you just don't want to eat that stuff. You're going to need 3 eggs, and be careful. These things are going to try to roll away from you. You just got to collect them. And you're going to need some cream of tartar. Now this ingredient, you'll probably find it way in the back of your spice cabinet if you got it at all. You could probably leave it out, but I just like it to add a little bit to the airiness of the bun. You're going to need some of these silicone molds, and I'll put a link down in the description where you can find these. Now we're going to bake these sub rolls in the oven, so the first thing you need to do is preheat that oven to 400 degrees. Come on. That oven loves to mess with me every time. Now you're going to need to line a baking sheet with parchment paper, and if you haven't seen my trick before, I like to crumple it up and put it down. It helps it stay in place a lot better. Now we're going to need to shred our cheese. So I take this box grater, and if you've seen any of my videos before, or if you haven't, I never use the shredded cheese out of the bag because they put these anti-caking agents in it that are mostly made out of wood, so unless you're wanting some extra trees in your diet, I just like to stay away. Now there's a couple ways you can melt this down to make our dough. You can use a saucepan and just put the cheese right in there and then dump in that cream cheese, and we'll start to whisk it together on the stove top. But you really have to watch it. If you don't want to watch it, what I like to do is just pop it in the microwave. Just put the cheese and the cream cheese in a bowl and then set your microwave for 20 seconds. Then take it out, stir it up a little bit, and keep doing that in 20-second bursts until it all comes together. This is what it should look like when it's done, and then you're just going to plop it out onto a cutting board. Now there's 2 ways you can put this dough together too. I used to make pasta on a board like this, so I'm kind of used to this. If you like doing that also, you can just put all of your ingredients together, the almond flour, the cheese mixture that we just did, and just mix everything together right on the board like that. Throw that baking powder on there and that little bit of cream of tartar, and then just kind of fold it over. Just keep working that dough just a little bit. You don't want to overwork it, just a few times just to get everything well combined. You can pour the egg right into the middle after you make that little well like that, and then you can just mix it up right on the board, knead it up, and cut it from there. Or you can just throw everything right in your favorite blender. I use this Ninja Professional blender. I love it, but you can just put everything in there and just pulse it together until it comes together in a nice dough. And this is what it should look like. Once you pulse it up, it's going to look a little different than if you did it kneading it on the board, but man, it's going to be some good stuff. Just throw a little bit of almond flour on your cutting board like that, and then we're going to take the dough out and just work it over like that. Now, obviously, if you did it the other way, you don't have to worry about this step. But if you didn't, just fold it over a few times like that till it all comes together. And then we're going to portion it out for our buns. So I'm just going to take a knife, cut it right in half, and this recipe is going to make 6 of these. So we'll just take each half and cut it into thirds and get these bad boys ready to go into the oven in just a few minutes. And put one of these little bundles of joy into each one of 6 different compartments. Now, you can put these in whatever spot you want in these molds, and I know a bunch of you are freaking out right now because they're not even. Got some on the bottom, some on the top, and now I'll flip it around for you. There you go. And then just keep pressing them down like that until it's pretty much all the way filled into the mold. You don't want to crush them, but you want them to be in there pretty good. They're going to rise some, but it's more just a sturdy vessel to hold this beautiful cheesesteak. So now I've just scrambled up a whole egg, and I'm going to channel my inner Bob Ross and just paint each one of these little buns with that egg. It's going to make it brown on top. It's going to make them look absolutely wonderful. And I think it helps it hold up a little better, because I plan on putting a lot of Philly cheesesteak on there, so they got to be sturdy. So this is what we need the parchment paper lined baking sheet for. We're going to put these molds right onto there, because it's real hard to pick that silicone up out of the oven if you don't have it on something. Now it's time for that little ride to the final destination. So we're going to just pop these in the oven now, and make sure you set your timer. I'm going to set mine on 15 minutes, and it seems to work really well. So after the 15 minutes is up, these are ready to go. Look how awesome they look. I'm telling you, they hold up so well to this Philly cheesesteak, you're going to love it. Now we got to get the meat ready. Now, you can go ahead and buy yourself one of these ribeye roasts like this. You know, if you're feeding an entire army or something, but basically what you would do with this is get your $107 worth of meat, take it over to your slicer, close it up, and let the action start to happen. Oh, you don't have one of these slicers? Yeah, I don't either. So what I like to do is just use these steakums. They come frozen, they're clean, the only ingredient in it is beef, and they're portioned out to make it easy to cook. Now you can put some bell pepper and mushroom on those too, and you can check out my fold over video for how I like to cook those. But you definitely need some of this cheese whiz. I'll link the video for how to make that up in the corner and in the description. You're going to need an onion for sure, and you're going to need something to put them on, and I'd recommend these rolls since, you know, we just made them and everything. Oh, and there's Buddy. He's hoping we drop a little something. He's getting hungry too. Now, if you don't like the cheese whiz, and hey, if you ever try it, you won't go back to this, but you can use provolone for this cheesesteak as well. Now, you got to get a small dice on that onion. I'll link all my cooking tools down in my Amazon store down below. That thing's super easy, and it makes it consistent every single time. And you saw how easy that was. Now, you just take your cheesesteaks out, and like I said, they've got them separated so they're real easy to cook with those little pieces of paper in between them. And so I like to cook the onions and the steaks in together. Now, one thing to remember when you're cooking this is, it's time for a cheese break. Okay, back to the meat. So basically I like to cook the meat like this. I don't want it too brown. Just a nice even cook is what you want on these. You don't want any hard bits in this. It's a really soft put together sandwich. You're going to cook the onions down a good bit, and it just goes in really good with that steak. Now once it's all cooked the way you like it, and make sure those onions get real soft, we'll just take one of our buns we just made. I'm going to layer on some of that beautiful cheese whiz. And you just put on as much or as little as you like. If you want to dollop some over the top when you're done too, hey, it ain't going to hurt my feelings any. Just put as much as you want on there, and then just start layering on that steak. And I know I'm messy. Hey, don't worry. I'm going to clean all that up, and I will make sure it's properly disposed of. Look how great that looks. And I'm telling you, that bun holds up so good to this Philly cheesesteak no matter how much you pile on there. Now, if you did want to use the provolone instead of using that cheese whiz, the way I like to do it is just make a little pile like that, throw some of that provolone cheese on there, and then I'll just flip it over onto that cheese so that cheese gets really nice and melty. I'll pile some more of that cheesesteak right up on top. And then just go over to your bun. She likes to top it with a little bit of my homemade Duke's mayonnaise. And then you just take it right out like that. Look at that cheese pool. Oh man. Maybe I will try that version next time. I don't know. Maybe I'll just do one of each. That's probably more likely. So that's what it looks like right there if you use the provolone instead of the cheese whiz. But that cheese whiz is super easy to make, and I'm just telling you, there's just something about that cheese whiz on a Philly cheesesteak. Now, if you like videos like this and you're not subscribed to my channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button down there that just lit up for you, and you'll know anytime I do a new video. So this is my keto version of the Philly cheesesteak, and now let's head over to Chris's kitchen so he can show you how to put together a carnivore Philly cheesesteak.
Your stuff looks amazing. I can't wait to try your versions of these if I decide to have myself a keto meal. That being said, I have the carnivore version of the Philly cheesesteaks here today. I've got it two different ways. We've got it with the more cheese whiz style, and then I did the provolone as well. And of course, I have my homemade carnivore bread. If you guys didn't know, I just released that recipe as well. You can have an actual loaf of carnivore bread. Maybe Victor will be nice enough to put that in the description box down below for you guys if you'd like to see my video on that. This is a modified version of that recipe. I'm going to show you how to make these amazing hoagie buns for a carnivore Philly cheesesteak. And because my wife hates all of those egg white breads, she's going to be the one to tell you how she thinks this tastes and if it tastes like one of those spongy egg white breads or if she actually likes this one. So let's see what she thinks, and then I'll show you guys how we make some carnivore Philly cheesesteaks.
These both look really, really good. Let's just go with this one first.
Provolone cheese.
I will say already just kind of, thank you so much.
It's probably gonna be messy because it's a Philly cheesesteak,
Not
right?
gonna be ladylike. Just picking it up though, wow, the texture of your bread is really impressive. It's like sturdy enough to clearly hold that, but you can tell there's literally like a sponginess and a doughiness. Also like a little, like almost like an actual crust, like an actual bread. I was not expecting that. That is actually incredible. Also, look at how well these like toasted up. That is insane. Let's see here.
A carnivore bread you can toast.
It actually tastes like bread and not cardboard. Wow. A Philly cheesesteak, meat and cheese. Great.
Classic combination.
Wonderful. Your bread though, like, that is incredible. I really have a hard time doing that's just not bread. There's like the fluffiness, you got the hard crust, but you have it grilled. I don't taste any egg whatsoever. That's really impressive.
I've made other recipes from other people who have egg white breads and they're very inventive, and I was really hopeful. She did not care for any of them.
I'm not trying to be a picky eater. I try not to lie to myself. And it's like, I can tell that that's not bread. It tastes nothing like the real thing. It's like, I'd rather just go without bread in my life. This though, tastes delicious. And I'm just like blown away at the texture of it. I was not expecting it. I mean, clearly knowing that it's not really like grains and flour and all that. It's that's really impressive, babe.
Right. All right, so she likes the one with provolone cheese. You got to give the other one the classic, cheese whiz sort of a vibe. I used my own like way of doing this with some American cheese. If that fits for your diet, if you want to do a carnivore thing with that, cool. If not, I get it. That's cool too.
I'm very happy.
Yes.
Your cheese sauce, 10 out of 10. Let's go back to your buns here though. I mean, your wow.
All right, guys, she loves them, and if my wife gives the approval on an egg white bread, you know that it has to be incredible. This is one that is done in a way I have never seen anybody do, and I think it yields a result that is totally different than any other egg white type bread or bun or anything else I've ever had. I'm really excited to share this one with you guys. So let me show you here on Victor's channel how we do these Philly cheesesteaks with the hoagie style buns. And then if you want, pop over to my channel and I'll show you the modifications we use to make a loaf of bread out of this. I think you're gonna be really, really surprised. Let's show you how we make the carnivore Philly cheesesteak today.
All right, y'all, let's make some carnivore hoagie buns. This is everything we're gonna need. It's a pretty straightforward recipe. So let's go ahead and take a look at the ingredients. I'm going to be making hoagie buns, but you can make a whole loaf with some modifications. Victor can put that down below for you guys if you want to see how I do that. So for the hoagies, we're going to need 4 eggs separated. So I have 4 egg yolks here and 4 egg whites here. This is 3/4 of a cup of heavy cream, 1 teaspoon of white vinegar, 1 teaspoon of baking soda, not baking powder. This is an optional 1/2 teaspoon of instant yeast, just for flavor. This is 1 heaping tablespoon of beef gelatin. Any unflavored gelatin will work. And here I have 6 tablespoons of egg white powder, separated 3 and 3. This is very important. So first we're going to use a large mixing bowl. I've wiped this out with white vinegar to make sure it is very, very clean because our egg whites are going to go in there. Make sure there is no fat residue, no drops of egg yolk, no fat of any kind. Now 3 heaping tablespoons of egg white powder are going to go in these liquid egg whites. Take your whisk and gently stir this around just to get all of that egg white powder moist so that it does not fluff up at you when you start to whisk it. And that looks good right there. Now I'm going to place this on my stand mixer. You can do this with hand beaters if you need to. We're going to turn this on low and then move it up to high, and we're going to start beating these egg whites until we get at least soft peaks. After 30 seconds to a minute, you'll want to scrape down the sides and just make sure there's no clumps of egg white powder that are sticking up onto the sides of the bowl. And then we're going to turn it back on high and continue whisking. While my egg whites are whisking up, I'm going to go ahead and put 3/4 of a cup of heavy whipping cream that is nice and cold into a large mixing bowl. I'm going to use my hand mixer and make a soft whipped cream, start on low and then increase to high. When my egg whites are almost at stiff peaks, I'm going to go ahead and add in the baking soda. Now I'll turn this back on high and whisk this for another 30 seconds. Then I'll scrape down the sides and then continue whipping this to stiff peaks. And once we get that marshmallowy texture and we have stiff peaks, we can go ahead and take the bowl off the mixer. And now we're going to finish making that whipped cream. This right here, this soft whipped cream texture, this is what we're looking for right there. Now to this whipped cream, we're going to add our instant yeast, the 4 egg yolks, sprinkle over the gelatin so that it's as even as possible to try to avoid any clumps, and the other 3 heaping tablespoons of egg white powder. Now we're going to use our mixer starting on low and then eventually high, and we're going to beat this as little as possible, but we want to get rid of the lumps of egg white powder. And we want to retain as much fluffiness as we can. Once all the egg white powder is gone, we're going to add our vinegar and whip this together on low to medium speed just until combined. Then we just scrape down the sides of the bowl, and we'll do that one more time to make sure everything is incorporated. Now we're going to fold these two mixtures together. Start with 1/3 of the egg whites. Put that into the whipped cream mixture and mix it vigorously so that it is well combined. Then we can add the second 2/3 of the egg whites, and we're going to gently fold this together to retain as much air as possible. Continue this cutting and folding gently until all of the white streaks are gone and you are left with a fluffy, light mixture just like this. To make these hoagie rolls, this is the type of bread pan I recommend you get. I'm going to have Victor put a link down below for you guys so you can go find this if you would like one just like this. But these edges are going to make making hoagie rolls much easier. Now take a piece of parchment paper that is the length of your cookie sheet plus a little bit extra because we're going to be needing a little bit extra space to work with. Now we're going to cut our parchment into strips that are just a little bit wider than the actual mold is. Now take a strip of parchment paper and you're going to crumple it up. Then we're going to open it back up so we can place it inside of our mold. And because we crumpled it up, it's going to stay down inside there. We just repeat this for the other slots. This recipe makes 4 of these really, really well. Now we're just going to take our bread batter and we're going to place it in the middle of each of these sections of this mold. And then I'm adding some on each end as well. Make these as even as possible, and like I said, 4 of these seems to be the right number for this recipe. Then I'm just going to smooth and even out the batter. Now we're going to take some extra pieces of parchment paper, crumple them up into a ball, and I'm going to place them under the ends to keep these just a little shorter and fatter of dough so that we get a thicker bun. Now it's time to put these in the oven. And these are going to bake at 375 degrees, and we're going to put them in for 25 minutes. After 25 minutes, they're going to look like this, but we want to make sure they don't fall. So we're going to close the oven door to where it is just barely cracked open. We're going to turn the oven off, and we're going to set a timer for 20 minutes to let these cool down slowly with the oven cracked. This patience is a virtue, but Mel's not convinced. Once the cool down period is over, we can go ahead and take these out of the oven. And you can see these are beautiful, soft, amazing hoagie rolls ready to be grilled up to make some Philly cheesesteak sandwiches. Now, if you like the Cheese Whiz style Philly cheesesteak sandwich, here's what I recommend you do. Get some American cheese. This is about 5 or 6 slices, whatever cleanest kinds you can possibly find. We're going to tear this up into pieces over a medium heat in a nonstick skillet. And we're going to add a few tablespoons of heavy cream, just enough to turn this into more of a sauce. Start to whisk this together and melt that cheese down. And remember, you can always add more cream later, so be careful not to add too much at the beginning. Once this is all melted together, it gives you an amazing Cheese Whiz spread that will get a little thicker as it cools down. And what would a Philly cheesesteak sandwich be without steak? I've got a large skillet over a high heat because I'm going to sear some steak. This is shaved steak. You can get this from places like Kroger. Use any kind of meat you want, but this thin shaved steak is super nice. And I'm going to use lard and then a little bit of butter for cooking this. And then I've got some beef broth, very weak bone broth standing by, and I'll show you what we do with that in a minute. We're going to go ahead and get our lard melted down and fry up some steak. For seasoning, I'm doing a generous pinch of salt and fresh ground black pepper, and that's it. And that high heat is going to be really important because we want to try to get a little bit of color on the steak, especially when we first put it in. That brown color right there, that's what we're looking for, at least a little bit without drying the steak out. And this is a great trick if you're using this thin shaved steak. Use 2 spatulas and start pulling the steak in opposite directions to help shred it up. This is exactly what they do on a flat top griddle when they make real cheesesteaks. Once your steak is all browned and cooked almost exactly the way you want it, we're going to go ahead and do a couple more things. First, I'm going to add a couple of tablespoons of butter just to coat the steak with a little bit of butter. It makes it very fatty and really tasty. And then I'm also going to add in a little bit of this weak bone broth. This is about a half of a cup. You may or may not need all of that, but I'm going to put about half of it in and just stir it around. This adds a really nice, juicy aftertaste to the steak. So I'm just pulling the steak to the side. You can see that bone broth in there mixing with the butter. Once this starts to cook down where it's almost gone, it's going to coat all of the steak and it's going to be ready to serve. Now it's time to cut this carnivore bread and show you what it looks like. One of the best things about this bread recipe is you can toast it. So we're going to use some hot butter and toast these up for our Philly cheesesteaks. So we're going to do one version with provolone cheese. And plenty of that juicy steak. And the other one, we're going to use some of that homemade Cheese Whiz spread. And man, is it nice and thick and tasty.
All right, y'all, that is the secret. That is the hoagie bread and the Philly cheesesteak done carnivore style, using that whipped cream and those egg yolks to get it blended in with those egg whites. All of that fat makes all the difference, so you can have a carnivore bun that doesn't taste like, quite honestly, a piece of styrofoam like some of those recipes can sometimes. I have a few bun recipes and I've really enjoyed those, but an actual bread, this is the only one that I've tried that I really enjoy. All the thanks to many creators who have come before me who have played with the egg white bread, because if it weren't for their work to figure out the first recipes of this, I would not have the work to be able to do this. But I think this is maybe a bit of a game changer in the world of the egg white breads. All right, there you go, Victor. That's how we do the carnivore Philly cheesesteaks. I can't wait to try your keto Philly cheesesteak at some point in time too. Hope you guys enjoy this recipe. Victor, thank you so much for inviting us to be on your channel to do some little collaboration work here with Southern Keto. Ash and I are huge fans of your work. We just really appreciate you. And more than anything, we're thankful for your friendship. Thanks for having us here on Southern Keto. This is Chris Cook in Nashville, my lovely wife, Ash Taylor. You guys eat your meat, love your life. We're gonna see you here in our kitchen for the next recipe. Back to you, Victor.
Hey Chris, I appreciate you coming on here to my channel so we can show people the keto and the carnivore. Everybody's on one end of the spectrum or the other, or somewhere in between, but we all have the same goal: the best possible health, waking up every morning feeling great, and telling the world about it. Hey, y'all help me thank Chris down in the comments for coming on. I appreciate everybody for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.
Leave me
Move
here with the Philly cheesesteaks.
Yes.
Just leave me here.